The music was equally distinctive in Argento's gothic fantasy Inferno. This time, rock legend Keith Emerson was the composer.
Dario gave me free license to do whatever I wanted with the music, and I think in hindsight, when I look back at it, what the music I wrote was a juxtaposition to what was really occurring on the screen. When I was composing it, my sons were like aged between 11, I suppose, and 7 years old, and I had to keep them out of my music room because they wanted to see what Daddy was writing. And every time they came in the music room, I had to, no, you can't watch this. You'll have nightmares. Dario would say, you've got to use this piece of Verdi. I said, well, if I'm going to do a version of this Verdi piece, I'm going to do it my way. So I actually did it in 5/4. And if you've ever been in an Italian taxi and been bumped around, 5/4 is a very suitable time signature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rather than as Verdi did it, was do 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 do. I don't sing very well, sorry.
As well as pushing the boundaries of movie music, Argento also pushed the boundaries of movie violence.
When you talk about violence in the Italian cinema, I think you have to talk about violence in Italian art generally, and violence particularly in opera, which is the Italian national art. If you print a plot synopsis, even of Rigoletto, it's grisly, it's grim, it's horrifying. You might have some trouble getting that movie past the MPAA. It does seem to be part of the way Italian artists often express themselves. There's a great extravagance in what they do that extends to extravagant operatic violence. And operatic is a word that people often use when they talk about Argento's films. The fact that he made a film called Opera, I think, is in no way coincidental.
Opera has one of the most strongest central ideas of a girl having needles put under her eyes so she can't close them, so she has to look at scenes of abject horror. This was always his metaphor for his cinema, anyway. And it's like Dario saying, I actually direct these scenes of violence for you to watch them. I do not want you to look away. I have a point to say.
What made Dario stand apart is that he really is a skilled craftsman, that he's able to create a film that is so suspenseful and so scary, and that this becomes sort of the icing on the cake, so to speak, is when you get to the, you know, to that violent punctuation.
A frequent criticism of Argento's work is that the violence in his films is directed mainly against women.
I've heard him saying that women are much more fun to kill, women are much more curious, women are much more interesting, and in a more profound way, there's something with his mother too that's not very clear to me, and I don't know what my grandmother did to him, but he always saw her as a monster, and so he tries to exercise that through his films.
Io non sono un misogino. Non immagino I film o di una
I'm not
storia
a
dove
misogynist. When I imagine my films, I don't imagine women tortured by men.
Nei miei film ci sono
In my
degli
films,
uomini
there are men and women who are cut to pieces.
All of the leading actors, the heroes in his movies are women. So it's difficult to pin him with the misogynistic label, per se. I think that he does something that is extremely disturbing to audiences, and that he couples violent death with almost sexual beauty, so that the deaths have a sexuality to them. And that's extremely disturbing to people.
I, as a woman, probably should be deeply offended by that, and I'm not. I don't feel that these movies are a blueprint for murderers of the world. I don't feel, truly, that they represent any deep-rooted misogyny on the part of the director. I think that murder is his subject, murder is his beat. It's what he's interested in, it's what he does. I don't feel he wants other people to do it.
Many people began to believe that Dario and Daria's relationship was being charted through their films.
In Profondo Rosso, for example, I mean, she's very happy-go-lucky, she's even singing in a scene. And then, of course, in Inferno, she gets murdered in a particularly vicious way. And then, of course, it goes all the way down from there, from Tenebrae. At the end, she's just screaming and screaming. And then in Phenomena, she looks terrible, and she's like razed to bits by a chimpanzee. And then in Opera, she's actually looking through a keyhole, and the bullet goes through her head, and she flies through the air. I mean, no wonder she hasn't wanted to work with Dario again. I mean, he's thought of more and more vicious ways of killing her off, because I think it actually is symbolic of their relationship.
I just don't know what to say about that, but I do hope that my significant other never puts me in a film in which he fires a bullet through my eyeball through a keyhole. It's kind of creepy.
Argento's films seem to come from a much deeper place than most, a fantastic world of the subconscious and of dreams, where logical narrative conventions take second place to a more profound emotional truth.
Dario told me he has dreams or nightmares, and that's how the story comes into being. He would write down the nightmare, and it would become the script.
I think that in Argento's films, the narrative usually doesn't matter a whole lot. They create this kind of dreamlike space that really, it's like being plunged into an incredibly complicated, fascinating nightmare. And it's somebody else's nightmare.
Knowing Dario as I do, I think that his films come out of his mind. The ideas behind his images and the way he looks at things comes out of the story that he tells over and over again. There was a hallway at the back of his house, and when he had to go to sleep at night, for whatever reason, when he would walk there, he would imagine these things behind his doorways of this hallway. And by the time he got to his room, he was in complete terror.
I think when Dario gets an idea, he is basically trying to communicate a kind of, either a kind of horror or an allegory about certain human behavior. I don't think he's the kind of guy that dots the I's and crosses the T's as far as story or character arc. I don't think he particularly cares about that. He's more like Gauguin or Van Gogh, somebody who just says, well, here's the way I want this to be, and this is the world, and, you know, take from it what you will.
Dario has also produced and presented programs for Italian television, including a series appropriately entitled Giallo. These appearances boosted the public perception of Dario as an Italian Alfred Hitchcock.
Argento was often referred to as the Italian Hitchcock, or a garlic-flavored Hitchcock. And I always thought that was a bizarre and spurious comparison, because his films are constructed so anti-Hitchcockly. Hitchcock is the most linear and controlled of directors who has probably ever worked in the medium. And Argento is the least linear, I think, whose work has ever achieved wide distribution and any kind of widespread following.